Okay, so extraocular muscles, what is expected from you people is the names of these muscles and which movements they do. Nerve supply is very simple to remember, so I will mention. They are voluntary, so you can move movement of the eyeball. It is voluntary. There are some involuntary component into it, but at least remember. And one of the muscle moves the eyelid, which we have already discussed, but still I am mentioning here, that is the levator palpebrae superioris. So these are the extraocular muscles. There are 4 recti, superior, inferior, medial, and lateral, 4 recti. 2 oblique muscles, superior oblique and inferior oblique, and 1 levator for the eyelid upper, that is what is the levator palpebrae superioris. The involuntary muscle, which is not under our control, it is the deep part of the levator, which is superior tarsal muscle, also known as Muller's muscle. I will show you, which is next slide. So I will show you. And then there is small muscle for inferior tarsal, and there is small muscle below the eyeball, which is at the inferior orbital fissure, which you have seen from where I explained you maxillary nerve comes out. That fissure is guarded by the orbitalis, and they just suspend the eyeball. So this is what is, if the orbitalis is paralyzed, then the sagging of the eyeball will take place. Eyeball will fall down a little bit. It will not stay in the center. So there are many pathologies related to it, but we'll focus to about the this 4 recti, 2 obliqui, and the levator. So let's go for this extraocular muscles. As you can see, this one is the levator palpebrae superioris going to the eyelid. All muscles except inferior oblique, all muscles except inferior oblique originates from the apex of the orbit and they run forwards. Levator palpebrae superioris goes to the upper eyelid. This is the superior rectus from orbit, apex of the orbit to the eyeball. This is the inferior rectus. This one is this greenish color is lateral rectus. Other side, this one, because you want to see it, you have to cut it to see the other side. So that is the medial rectus on medial side of the eyeball. This is the superior oblique. But as I mentioned, during the bony orbit, there is a trochlea. So this muscle passes through this trochlea and run backwards. It changes the direction here, this one. So this is the superior oblique. And this one is the inferior oblique, which comes from the floor. So this is the only muscle which comes from the front and goes backwards. All other muscles comes from backwards, okay, from the back or the apex of the orbit. But the superior oblique turns backwards after passing through the pulley. So this is what is about the different muscles which is seen in this picture. At least I want you to know that what is the nerve supply of all these muscles. It's simple. All by oculomotor nerve, that is third, except superior oblique, SO4, 4 is trochlear, and LR, lateral rectus, by 6th. 6th is abducent. So all the extraocular muscles are supplied by third cranial nerve, oculomotor nerve, except SO4, LR6. Superior oblique by the trochlear. Trochlear is 4th cranial nerve. And lateral rectus by 6th cranial nerve, which is abducent. So this, at least important line for the nerve supply you can remember. It's very simple. All by 3 except SO4, LR6. Now we discuss about this levator palpebrae superioris. This is the origin of all the muscles, as I mentioned, from the apex of the orbit. As you can see, because in the previous diagram, I showed you they are coming from here, right? So if you see from within, it looks like this. Like this. See? This is the apex. This is the optic nerve. Okay. And this is the ring around the optic canal. This ring is known as annular tendinous ring. It's on the name of scientists, ring of Zinn. Z-I-N-N. Ring of Zinn. From the ring of Zinn, you have 4 muscles. Superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus, lateral rectus. Above the ring, superior, this levator palpebrae superioris. Between superior and medial, superior oblique. So this is what is the picture which shows you origin. No need for you to memorize this detail and the fact. You should know that they all come from the apex of the orbit except infraoblique. So this is how it looks like. Levator palpebrae superioris we discussed with the eyelid, but I'm just recapping some of the points. It comes from the apex of the orbit, which is the point lesser wing of sphenoid. So this is the bone. And when it comes to the eyelid, it divides into two parts. As you can see here, the two parts. The one part is going like this. I will draw with highlighter, I think. This one. This one. Sorry, red. This one. Going to the skin. Going to the skin. And this one going to the superior tarsus. Now I put a lesser so you know. Here, this is the levator palpebrae superioris. It comes, when it comes to the eyelid, it divides into two lamina. One goes to the skin and one goes to the superior tarsus. The one which goes to the superior tarsus is known as Muller's muscle. It's a name of scientist. Muller's muscle. Very favorite of ophthalmologist. Okay, Muller's muscle. And this one going to the skin is the voluntary component. This voluntary component is supplied by oculomotor nerve, third cranial nerve. And this involuntary Muller's muscle is supplied by sympathetic fibers. Sympathetic fibers. So if the sympathetic fibers for head and neck are damaged, which is very common in Horner syndrome, then the patient will develop partial ptosis because Muller muscle is paralyzed, but oculomotor is still intact. But still, because the balance of two muscles is required, the eyeball slightly droops, and that is what is partial ptosis. Okay, which is very common in Horner syndrome. So this is what is, and function of this muscle is elevation of the upper eyelid, which we know very well. Levator palpebrae eyelid superioris upper. So levator palpebrae superioris. The paralysis of levator palpebrae superioris, ptosis. P is silent here. Ptosis, drooping of the eyelid. In Horner syndrome, as I explained, the sympathetic fibers are damaged. So Muller's muscle will paralyze. It leads to partial ptosis. And this can be corrected by surgery. You can lift the eyelid, okay, so that it doesn't obstruct the vision. There is corrective plastic surgery, and you can correct this particular paralysis. So this is about the levator palpebrae superioris. Let's move to the other muscles. The origin of all the muscles I explained. Okay, origin of all the muscles I explained. So this is the infraoblique. I will show also, and we'll discuss individually so you will know. So this is the infraoblique. It comes from the floor of the orbit and goes like this. And this one is superaoblique. It is here, and then goes backwards. This is the levator palpebrae superioris. This is the superior rectus. This is the inferior rectus. This is the lateral rectus, and that one is the medial rectus. Okay. So this is what is the origin here. Insertion. Insertion is on the sclera, so that they can move the eyeball. So insertion on the sclera. How much away from this sclerocorneal junction? Sclerocorneal junction. This is the sclerocorneal junction. We call it limbus. So how much away from that sclerocorneal junction the muscles are inserted? I usually remember these exact millimeters, but I remember by a formula. Start with the medial rectus. So then move clockwise. So medial rectus 5 millimeters. Below inferior rectus 6 millimeters. Lateral rectus 7 millimeters away from here. Then superior rectus 8 millimeters. And the oblique eye, superior inferior oblique eye are still far away. It is in posterior quadrant, behind equator. This is more than enough. It is behind the equator. So this is the equator of the eyeball. This is the equator of the eyeball. So the superior oblique and inferior oblique is here. It is behind the equator. And all recti is in front of equator. Here, 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 like this. But how much distance away from the cornea? It is 5, 6, 7, 8. Start with the medial. Medial 5 millimeters away from the cornea, behind the cornea. Then inferior 6. Then lateral 7 and superior 8. So this is the formula I usually remember like this. Nobody expects from you, but maybe those who are correcting the squint, ophthalmologist, he should know each millimeter, because when you are correcting the deviated eyeball to bring in the line, a millimeter will make a difference of angle, and that's how his eyes will be aligned. So it looks funny for at present to remember these numbers, but ophthalmologist says a millimeter is also important to make the correction of the squint. Okay, so as a specialist, it requires little bit of more skills to correct it with these particular numbers, and how much fibrosis will take place when you stitch and cut. Okay, and this nature's healing mechanism will shorten this much distance of the muscle, so this much angle will change. Otherwise, you correct it, it may be over corrected, and you are correcting little squint and patient develops medial squint. So these millimeters are very important for these specialists. I am keeping this for your reference, but the movements are already expected from you, so I will explain. It is there in the presentation as just one picture. Nothing is there beyond that. So I would like that you should remember how these muscles move the eyeball, at least for as a understanding the squint and ophthalmology part. Okay, not as anatomy only. So what I have done, I have brought this particular eyeball with me. So this is the ball, plastic ball like thing, and I have drawn the whatever necessary for me to explain on this particular part. Okay, so eyeball will move in 3 different axes. Okay, so there is a vertical axis, transverse axis, and anteroposterior axis. This one, okay, this one is the different axis. What we'll do now is, I think I will stop sharing and I will keep myself this video as a full screen so that you can see. Let's see and change this part. So what happens that because the axis of the orbit, clear, is oblique and all muscles are coming like this, it is not straight. So whenever you are moving the eyeball, it will move in different axes except the 2 pure muscles. So let's understand what is here. This central dot I have kept for you. This central dot, this one, is the center of the pupil. So this is the center of the pupil. Okay, this one is the center of the pupil. I have marked red color here so that you can see. This is the 12 o'clock position of the cornea. 12 o'clock, upper portion. 12 o'clock position of the cornea. So when intorsion and extorsion, which takes in anteroposterior axis, takes place, you have to watch how this 12 o'clock shifts. Okay, and for elevation, depression, and abduction and adduction of eyeball, you have to look at the center of the pupil, how it moves. So if the center of pupil moves inwards, clear, medially, then we will call adduction. I am showing you now, this one is the left eyeball on this side, okay, my side, this way, clear. So let's understand 3 different axes. This is the transverse axis. I hold the eyeball in transverse axis. So if the center of pupil moves up, elevation. If the center of pupil moves down, depression. Okay. Now, if I hold it in vertical position, I'm just showing you the movements possible in axis. Then we will discuss which muscle does what action. Now, this one is the medial side. Okay. So this is the medial rectus. It moves the eyeball medially. If the center of pupil moves medially, we call it adduction. And if the center of pupil moves laterally, abduction. Clear? So it takes place in vertical axis. And there is third axis, anteroposterior axis. So now I'm heading anteroposterior, center of the pupil to here. So now you will watch what? The 12 o'clock position. If the 12 o'clock position turns inwards like this, it is known as intorsion. Intorsion. And if the 12 o'clock position turns outwards, it is known as extorsion. So this is extorsion, this is intorsion, and this is normal position at 12 o'clock. So the muscles will move this eyeball in this different axis. Now which muscle does which movement and what is the axis, I'm explaining one by one, and my another finger I will put on the eyeball wherever the insertion of the muscle is there. And if I keep the finger on that part and just move the eyeball, it will move in particular axis in particular action only. So you will not get confused. So I am trying to explain the easiest version. This is what is the vertical axis. This is the vertical axis. So I hold this ball into vertical axis. So this is our eyeball like this. And we have two muscles which is pure muscles. They don't do any other action. They do only one action only in vertical axis. And that is what is the medial rectus. So this is the side medial. Okay. So this is the medial side. This is the medial rectus. I already marked here the blue color so that I know where the muscle is. So this is the medial side insertion. So if this is the axis, I hold up the eyeball and this is the muscle which is coming from back and going here forwards. So it is like this. And when it contracts, it moves the eyeball medially. Medial rectus, adduction of eyeball. Medial rectus, adduction of the eyeball. Same way, now here, I am still in the vertical axis and this is the lateral rectus. When it contracts, it moves the eyeball laterally. That is abduction of the eyeball. And we are back in the center. So abduction and adduction, abduction by the lateral rectus and adduction by medial rectus. Clear? So this is pure and without any confusion. Now we discuss about the superior rectus, individual muscles, one by one. Okay, so that you will not get confused, one by one. So this is what is the superior rectus here, which is in the upper part now, upper part. So let me start with the transverse axis, which is easier. So this is a transverse axis and muscle is above, superior rectus, and it is in front of the equator. So it is in front. So when it contracts, it will move the eyeball upwards. Elevation. So superior rectus is responsible for elevation of the eyeball because centropupil moves up. This is the elevation. But because this muscle has an oblique direction against the eyeball is facing forwards and the muscle comes obliquely. So it is medial to the axis, vertical axis. This is the vertical axis. So it is medial to the vertical axis. And this is the muscle. If it is medial to the vertical axis, which is its normal course, and this is the axis, what it will do in vertical axis, same muscle. But in vertical axis, what it does? When it contracts, it moves the eyeball medially. That is adduction. So it helps the medial rectus. Superior rectus helps the medial rectus. Clear? So it does adduction. Clear? Now, the third axis is the anteroposterior axis. This is the anteroposterior axis, and this is the superior rectus. So when it contracts, it will turn the eyeball inwards. This is known as intorsion. So superior rectus is responsible for intorsion, adduction, and elevation. So three actions, one muscle, all the three axes. But because its direction is such, you hold the ball, it will move in that direction only, because this is the how muscle works. Clear? So this is the transverse axis, so it will elevate. It's a vertical axis because this muscle is medial to the vertical axis. It does adduction. And anteroposterior axis, it is above it, so it rotates this inwards. So 12 o'clock moves inwards. This movement you cannot demonstrate yourself. Only we put a small dot by iodine dye on the eyeball, and we can test that intorsion and extorsion. But you cannot see. But elevation, depression, medial rate, abduction, adduction, you can see yourself even in the mirror. Okay, so this is what is three action by the superior rectus. So same comes up the inferior rectus. Inferior rectus is below. It is mirror image of the superior rectus. So I will again go by the transverse axis. So I am holding it transverse axis, and the muscle is below. So depression, very simple, logical. So inferior rectus is responsible for depression of the eyeball. Then let's go for the vertical axis. It is in same mirror image. So it is here. And when it contracts, it causes adduction. So it helps medial rectus. So superior rectus and inferior rectus helps medial rectus for adduction. And third, anteroposterior axis. It's here. And this is the 12 o'clock and it's below. When it contracts, it causes outward rotation. That is what is extorsion. So superior rectus, which was above, it causes intorsion, and inferior rectus, which is below, causes extorsion. Okay, so they are contradictory to each other, antagonist during intorsion and extorsion. And for medial rotation, that is the adduction, they help medial rectus together. Okay, along with superior, inferior rectus, and medial rectus, all are responsible for adduction. Right, and for elevation and depression, superior rectus elevation, inferior rectus depression, which is a logical action. So this finishes the superior inferior rectus. We finish medial lateral rectus. Now comes up obliques, two obliques, superior oblique and inferior oblique. Now understand this particular part. That again I will go with the transverse axis, so it will be easy for you to understand. The superior oblique comes from back, goes to the pulley, then turns backwards and goes behind equator. This is the equator and is behind the equator. So my fingers will not go like this. Now it's like this. Okay, because it came from medial side and then went backwards. So when it contracts, from muscle will contract, the power of the muscle will be generated at the level of the pulley. So this is the power which will ultimately reach to the eyeball. So when it contracts in the transverse axis, it will cause depression. Even if its muscle is located up, it will depress because it comes from front. Muscle comes from back, but passing through the pulley, now it is going backwards and behind the equator. That's why it is causing depression in transverse axis. Okay. Now let's see the vertical axis. It's the same like this, and it is medial to the vertical axis. So when it is causing abduction away from the midline. So pupil is moving away from the midline. So this is abduction. And in the anteroposterior axis, let's see the 12 o'clock position. It is here. So it causes intorsion because it's coming from the front. It's causing intorsion. So that is what is the superior oblique. Let's go for the inferior oblique, which is exact mirror image of the superior oblique. It also goes in the posterior part. And I will go with the same way, the transverse axis. I hold the ball in transverse axis. And the muscle comes from floor of the orbit and goes backwards like this. It's a mirror image. This was a superior like this. This was superior. It's a mirror image here. So when it contracts, it moves the eyeball up. So elevation. So it is located below, but causes movement up. Why? Because it's in the posterior compartment of the eyeball, inserted on the posterior part. So that's why it moves the eye up in transverse axis. Now in vertical axis, because this particular muscle is the same mirror image above, so it will help abduction. Help superior oblique and inferior oblique together with the lateral rectus for the abduction. So abduction is done by lateral rectus and aided by superior oblique and inferior oblique. Comes for the anteroposterior axis. Let's see this part, and we are at 12 o'clock, and we are now discussing this one. When it contracts, it moves the eyeball like this. So extorsion. Clear? And this one, intorsion, because it's upper part and this lower part. So it causes extorsion. So this is what is how the inferior oblique is responsible for extorsion, superior oblique is responsible for intorsion. Got it? So this is how the combination of movements takes place by this particular muscles on the eyeball based on the different axes, which is mentioned in the presentation one by one. But if you understand by this particular type of a ball and move yourself how they move the different axes, the eyeball in different axes, then you will never make mistake of memorizing which one does what. Got it? So try to practice yourself, repeat this motion yourself, and try to understand the mechanism of how the eyeball moves. Clear? Keep this particular type of video for yourself to understand how this particular eyeball moves, and you will never forget. If you go on trying to memorize yourself which one does intorsion, extorsion, medial rotation, lateral rotation, adduction, abduction, you will get confused with terminologies. Clear? So this is what is about the movements. Because in presentation for you, it was just mentioned the names and the arrows to show you where it goes. You don't know what they are doing. So I explained this particular part for you in detail, whether it is important to memorize in that way or another way, but it will be helpful for you to understand in ophthalmology all the different type of squint, abnormal deviation of eyeball, which muscle is paralyzed, what will happen. So now we will go back to our presentation and try to understand if this particular muscles will not work and the nerve will damage, what will happen. So this will be very easy for you. So I will share again the presentation. I think because in small video you cannot see what is moving where. So I wanted it to be on a full screen like thing. The intorsion and extorsion are not abnormal movements. They are normal movement. They are taking place involuntarily. Our eyeball is not moving up and down. It also slightly turns inwards and outwards also. Okay, Abdullah. So this is what is very important to know. This is a normal movement, but we cannot see it. So this is intorsion and extorsion is balancing the location of the object. Clear? So not only it moves up and down and adjust. We cannot do ourselves intorsion and extorsion voluntarily. It will automatically move along with elevation and depression, either with the abduction and adduction. So this is such component which cannot be demonstrated by ourselves to somebody, but clinician can test it. Clinician can test it. What they do, they put an iodine dye at the 12 o'clock position. And then they see whether the 12 o'clock moves which way. They are asking you to elevate eyeball, look up, look down. So while you are looking in a particular direction, eyeball still moves. So, and they can see that. Like this for thumb, you know this thumb. Clear? You can see this is the adduction, flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, right? But when you are doing opposition, counting the fingers, your thumb automatically rotates. See, it is rotating. It is a medial rotation. So medial rotation of the eye, the thumb, clear, is associated with the flexion. So you cannot yourself medially rotate, except you passively rotate it like this. But when you are moving, it automatically rotates. Same is for eyeball. When it is moving upward, it automatically rotates, but you are not aware of it. You cannot observe because you have not put a dye on 12 o'clock to notice it, but it is moving. And clinician can test by putting an iodine dye at 12 o'clock, the way I did here for the eyeball to explain as a red mark. Got it? So this is what is about the different movements. I already explained, so I will skip all these particular pictures for you to understand. But once you understand here, the pictures will be very simple and the names are also very simple because they just want you to know which muscle does what action. So this is the list of the actions. Already I have put up as one of the table also, which gives you idea of how these muscles do, what movements, and what is their nerve supply. It is very simple. As I mentioned, all are supplied by oculomotor except SO4, LR6, supra-oblique by trochlear, lateral rectus by abduction. This is what is the movements of eyeball. This is not mentioned, it is but clinical, only clinical. And you know very well, because I never like students to just memorize facts without knowing why they are learning these things and go home. So that's why I always keep something. Sometimes it takes some of the time in my presentation, but I always keep some pictures. Maybe not all like this. This is because we have free time and we can discuss some more time. I have put up many, but otherwise I have just highlighted that abnormal deviation of the eyeball is known as squint. This you should know. Abnormal deviation of this eyeball is known as squint, and another name for squint is strabismus. Strabismus. So this is what is about the squint and the strabismus. So the abducent has the longest course in cranial cavity, and during raised intracranial tension pressure, the brain moves slightly downwards towards the foramen magnum, and this is the long course passing just above the pyramidal part of the bone, clear, temporal bone. So it is like this. The nerve crosses the top of the pyramid, that's the bone, and then it goes to the orbit. So while it's going like this is crossing this top. This is the mountain, top of the mountain. Normally this will not harm the nerve because it's a slight curvature. But when the pressure in the cranial cavity increases, the brain is squeezed towards the foramen magnum. Suppose it's here. The brain will be pushed backwards and downwards. Then the course of the nerve will be kinked. It was like this. Now it's like this, kinked. And the sharp edge of this particular temporal bone will try to cut the fibers. And with slight movement of the brain, the fibers will be torn. So abducens nerve will be damaged. So abducens nerve is commonly damaged in cases of raised intracranial tension. And the patient develops later on paralysis of lateral rectus. If the paralysis of lateral rectus is there, clear, lateral rotation, that is abduction, will not take place. So eyeball will move in which direction? You can write. If the lateral rectus is paralyzed, eyeball will move in which direction? Medial. Sarah, right? Medial. Okay, so abnormal deviation because of unbalanced medial rectus. Unbalanced medial rectus, eyeball will move medially. And that is what is the medial squint. Medial squint. So you understand the principle. So medial squint. So medial squint is because of paralysis of lateral rectus. Okay. So same is for the, let's understand for the oculomotor nerve palsy. Oculomotor nerve, because medial rectus, we want to keep a pure movement so that the squint is pure. Okay. I don't want you to confuse with other part and slight angulation of the eyeball because it will confuse your mind still further. But I just want you to understand pure disease. Okay. So suppose oculomotor nerve is damaged, clear. So medial rectus is paralyzed and lateral rectus is unbalanced. Lateral rectus is normal because its nerve supply is different. So the eyeball will move laterally and it causes lateral squint. As you can see in this picture number 2. And this one is medial squint. And this one is lateral squint. Okay. So lateral squint is paralysis of medial rectus, but it is because of the oculomotor nerve palsy. And oculomotor supplies other muscles also, and even it supplies the levator palpebral also. So patient will develop even ptosis also, even the lateral squint also, plus slight angulation of the eyeball. So there are ophthalmoplegia. That is condition is known as ophthalmoplegia. But the predominant feature of ophthalmoplegia will be lateral squint. That's a predominant feature. That will give you a clue that something wrong with the oculomotor nerve or oculomotor nucleus in midbrain. So this is what is the lateral squint. Now we understand the third cranial nerve because these are the 3 cranial nerves supplying extraocular muscles. Oculomotor, abducens, and trochlear. Now coming to the trochlear. Trochlear nerve supplies superior-oblique muscle. And superior-oblique muscle is not pure muscle. That means it is helping others. Intorsion, it also does, somebody else also does. It does depression, somebody else also does depression. It does abduction, somebody else also doing abduction. Sorry. So this one will not create a problem for the patient except he's trying to look downwards. When he's trying to look downwards and medially like this, when you are trying to move stairs down and you look down, okay. So now normal eye will look downwards and the paralyzed muscle will move slightly, but it will not move exactly in the same alignment of both the eyes. It should look like this. But now one is straight, one is straight because abnormal, and the normal moves down. So now in his brain, there are 2 images. One image is from the down and one image from the front. Clear? And they are overlapping with each other and it causing confusion. That is known as diplopia. Diplopia, double vision. So when he's moving down, he falls down his stairs. He complains of looking down. He has a diplopia and he sometimes misses the step because of confusion in his vision. So when he's looking down, the problem. But when he's above the horizontal plane, straight, now the superior oblique is not working. So he will not have any complaint. He will not have any complaint. So that is why the trochlear nerve palsy can only be diagnosed when patient complains that when he's looking, going downstairs, he sometimes misses the step or he get confused because of the steps are not seen clearly and he sees some other images overlapping on the steps. He will say that I am worried to go down, and whenever I'm looking down, moving downstairs, I have a problem. Otherwise, looking down on the floor also will not create him much problem, except he misses here and there some structures coming on his way. So when he's above the horizontal plane, everything is fine. And looking below, diplopia. Diplopia looking down, the characteristics of trochlear nerve palsy, paralysis of superior oblique muscle. So this is what is all muscles now, because oculomotor is everything, and abducent and trochlear. So I finished all the muscles which are responsible for the control of the extraocular muscles and their palsies. Okay, and there are some pictures to show you, and clinician will explain each squint in detail and treatment of some of the squint. There are different type of the squint: concomitant squint, congenital, okay, later on acquired squint. There are many, and there is full classification. It is taught by the ophthalmologist. This is the picture when you want to test individual muscles, how the eye will move in particular direction. So just for your reference for the clinical test.